Command & Colours Napoleonics is a board game by GMT Games designed by Richard Borg that allows you to control the armies of Napoleon or Wellington in the battlefield struggles of the Napoleonic Wars. So if you fancy yourself as a Corsican ogre or Britain's most famous boot wearer, then this is the game for you. This video is going to show you how the game plays, covering most of the important rules and hopefully give you a feel of typical game play. In this example, I have set up the board as the first scenario in the list, the Battle of Roliça, 17th of August 1808. Led by Sir Arthur Wellesley, the future Duke of Wellington, the mixed British and Portuguese force of about 15,000 men advanced against a French force of 5,000 men commanded by General Henry de la Borde. The French planned a delaying action to await reinforcement, and they stood on the hills surrounding Roliça. They were blocking the British advance on Lisbon. Here we see the British line ready to advance, along with their Portuguese allies on the right flank. The French defence line is stretched across the hill range with Roliça on their right flank. You can see here that the terrain is laid out using the hexes, showing the different types of landscapes and urban areas. Each side is made up of a number of units of infantry, cavalry and artillery, as dictated by the particular scenario. These individual units under your command are made up of a number of blocks. These Portuguese light infantry, for instance, have 3 blocks, the British line infantry has 4 blocks per unit, and the British cavalry here has 3 blocks. The unit can represent anything from a single company to a brigade, depending on the scenario. The number of blocks also visually represents the strength of the unit and their ability to fight. As units take casualties, blocks are removed, and when the final block is gone, that unit is considered destroyed. This doesn't mean that the entire unit is laid in a bloody heap on a battlefield, but a combination of casualties, collapsed morale and disorganisation has led it to no longer being an effective fighting unit. The game proceeds by each player taking a turn, and what they can do in the turn is restricted by the command cards that they hold in their hands. The scenario will tell you how many command cards are available for each side. The cards also show you how many units can be activated in that turn and in which portion of the battlefield, the flanks or the centre. The areas of the battlefield are clearly marked on the board by a dashed line, so you know exactly what is allowed and where. Only units that have been activated can perform an action, moving, assaulting or firing, for example. In this example, the British player chooses a coordinated advance card, which allows a unit on both the left and right flank to activate, along with 2 in the centre. Movement is simple. Most line units and foot artillery will move at the rate of 1 hex per activation. Some light units and horse artillery can move up to 2 hexes, and most cavalry can move up to 3 hexes. Here the British commander activates the Portuguese line to advance down from their hilltop position on the right flank. He then activates 2 British line units in the centre. One of these units has advanced into the woods. Different terrain will affect movement, and a terrain hex with woods on it stops a unit from moving further. The infantry unit only has 1 movement hex anyway. However, the woods provides cover and will reduce the opponent's attack dice, so this is a pretty good position to be in. And finally, on the left flank, another British line infantry unit moves forward. In this scenario, the river is fordable, so crossing it here is no problem. These are the only units that can be activated by the card played by the British player. Only infantry and artillery units can conduct ranged combat. Infantry fire at 2 hexes, unless they're light rifles, then they have a range of 3 hexes. Foot artillery will fire at a maximum of 5 hexes, and horse artillery will fire at a maximum of 4 hexes. Artillery range is reduced if the artillery unit has taken casualties. Here the British unit is firing at the French line unit on the top of the hill. There are 4 blocks in the British unit, so the number of battle dice they roll is 4. However, they are firing uphill, so this reduces their battle dice by 1. This unit hasn't moved, and British infantry get an extra dice if they are stood still on firing, so we arrive at 4 dice. The symbols on the battle dice show the damage done to the target unit. In this case, we have rolled 2 infantry, 1 cavalry and 1 artillery symbol. As the British are firing at French infantry, the cavalry and the artillery symbol are ignored. However, the French unit loses 2 infantry blocks, an excellent result. Had the British player rolled a flag in this combat, then the French unit would have had to retreat 1 hex, falling back off the top of the hill. Melee combat occurs when two units are adjacent, like this British line infantry unit attacking uphill against this French light infantry unit. Because the British unit is fighting uphill, it loses 1 dice in the attack, meaning it rolls 3 dice. Their 3 dice score an infantry, a cavalry and an artillery hit, which means the French light infantry lose 1 block. Because the French unit was neither destroyed nor forced to retreat, they can actually battle back, so they roll 3 dice for their 3 remaining blocks, scoring a cavalry, a flag and an infantry. This makes the British line infantry lose 1 block and they are forced back in retreat. Not a great result for the men in red. Cavalry are probably the biggest threat to infantry in the open, but there is a defensive stance that the infantry can take that alleviates the problem somewhat. This is the Infantry Square. It was an anti-cavalry tactic that was used throughout the Napoleonic Wars, and anyone who ever watched the film Waterloo will remember the British squares against the French cavalry attacks. Forming a square occurs in an opponent's turn when the cavalry is about to melee against an infantry unit. The defending player announces that they intend to form square and readies their square track. The attacking player chooses at random one of the defending player's command cards, and it is placed on the square track in one of the numbered positions. The square token of the same number is then placed by the unit in square to remind the players that this unit has formed. This has the effect of reducing the player's hand of command cards and therefore their tactical flexibility whilst they have units in square. However, it also reduces the number of cavalry attack dice to just 1 when they are attacking an infantry unit that is formed in square. The final thing to cover is leaders. Leaders can either be unattached, as this one is, or attached to a unit. When a leader is attached to a unit, they can add extra dice to the combat roll for that unit, making them much harder hitting. Leaders will also ignore 1 flag rolled against the unit to which they are attached, making them stand firm. This video has been a brief overview of some of the core rules of the game Command & Colours Napoleonics. There is more to this game than I can show in this brief video, but hopefully this has been a good overview of the gameplay and some of the main rules. Thanks for watching, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please hit subscribe for future videos.